Welcome to this week's edition of In the Clubhouse with EMD Baseball. I'm Andy Kirikides, joined by my wonderful co-host Keith Glasser. How we doing?
Great. How are you?
Good. We're coming up on a interesting period of time for a lot of high school kids, right? You've got high school down south. I'm in Virginia. Like, we're creeping up on playoffs. Season could end any day, any week now, right? So most travel ball schedules don't start until early June, mid-June. There's this funky period right now where kids aren't going to have the opportunity to play a ton of games, but they also need to make sure that they're prepared for the upcoming summer, right? On top of that, and I'm going to kick this over to you to touch on this particular piece, but it's a super busy time for coaches, right? And they're not always the best at getting back at people. So understanding that some of that communication might not be as good as you would want it to be, which will get to the topic of hurry up and wait. But these two pieces of the puzzle need to be considered during this time period. Is like, what are you going to do for the next month, 5 weeks to make sure you stay sharp? And then understanding that this is not the time to panic if there's not a ton of back and forth with coaches, because it's a real funky period as a college coach, getting towards the back end of your season, playoffs, conference tournaments, so on and so forth. So what do you got to say about that?
Yeah, I think there's an odd period that we're about to get into. Most Division 2s and 3s are getting into the last week of their conference play, with obviously the conference tournaments following after that, and then NCAA regionals, super regionals, World Series. Division 1s, you probably have about 3 weeks left of conference play, maybe 4. And then obviously conference tournaments, regionals, supers, and the World Series. So this is crunch time for a lot of college baseball programs where the sole focus is what's going on within the program. How can we win games? What do we need to do in order to make playoff pushes? Things like that, where not the recruiting stuff stops, but it does get pushed to the back burner a little bit, where you might not get a lot of back and forth with coaches because there's so much going on. And what I mean by that, obviously, from what I just said with conference tournaments and schedules and things like that, you also have to factor in that a lot of schools are on finals week, this week, next week, which throws your entire day into disarray. Where you're not having team practice, but you might be having groups and guys coming out throughout the course of the day where you're literally on the field from 8 in the morning until 4 at night, because you're just trying to get everyone working, bullpens, hitting, defense, the like. And then from a gameplay standpoint, in a lot of conferences, right, especially Division 2, Division 3, and in some Division 1s, you don't even know where you're playing until the season ends, right? So like you have some, like you're trying to schedule buses and hotels and travel and meals and all this stuff throughout the course of the week, because now all of a sudden you're going, you had no idea where you're going and now you're traveling. And then the next week you won. So now we're into the conference tournament, or we're into the regionals. Like, we don't know where we're going. We'll find out from the NCAA or from the conference standpoint. And now we're going somewhere else. So now we need buses, hotels, rooms, all this stuff. Like, all of that stuff in your team takes priority to what's going on. So some of that back and forth with recruits is going to fall by the wayside a little bit. So don't take it personal if guys aren't getting back to you at the same kind of frequency that they were prior to. It's just there's a lot going on their end, and you will appreciate when you're at a college baseball program that your coach is taking the time to make sure that he's coaching you up and being present with you, versus trying to, navigate 8 billion different things and recruiting all at the same time. So there's that piece. The other piece, like you touched on, is there's, depending on where you are in the country, right? Like, I know there's, we have people out of New Orleans we work with who are done with playoffs, right? So you have, a substantial break between now and when the summer, quote unquote, gets underway. And if you're in the Northeast, it's a little bit of a shorter gap because you start later. You're going to finish up in mid-May into June if you make it into the States, and then the summer starts right away. So you can kind of seamlessly transition in, or you might have 2 or 3 weeks off instead of 5 or 6. But figuring out what you need to do in that time frame to stay sharp. Making sure you're on your throwing program. You're throwing your bullpens. You're a hitter. You're getting live at bats, or at least you're seeing live arms, right? Like if guys are throwing bullpens, see if you can stand in just to get live looks at pitches. Making sure you're practicing, making sure you're staying sharp defensively. If you're a position guy, you're throwing so that your arm stays in shape. The last thing you want to do is do all the stuff you did over the course of the off season from October, November, December, January, February, and then stop for 3 or 4 weeks and not take it seriously. And then all of a sudden it's going to take you another 2 or 3 weeks to get back into playing shape because you've taken that time off where, those 2 or 3 weeks where you're working yourself back into playing shape are prime opportunities for coaches to get out and see you. And if you're not, if you're on your C game and not your B+ game or A game, then, you're going to do yourself a disservice because you've taken 5, 6 weeks off, 2, 3 weeks off, whatever it might be. You want to make sure that you're doing everything it is in your power to make sure that you're staying sharp. Like, are you going to be in 100% game shape? Likely not, and that's okay. Coaches understand that. But there's a big difference between you can tell the difference of like, yeah, this kid's put in work over the last 5 weeks having not played, and this kid's done absolutely nothing and is just getting blown up, can't throw strikes, and isn't playing well. So you want to make sure that you're putting yourself in the best position to be able to find that success when your summer spins up, whenever it is. And there's going to be gaps in that too, right? Like there's not a ton of events that are going on in early June. It starts to pick up in mid to late June, so even then you want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do in order to make sure that you're going to find yourself having success on the field when your summer baseball team and summer tournaments and stuff start to spin up, or the camps and clinics you're going to go to be in front of coaches, that you're putting your best foot forward when you get to them.
Yeah, staying primed and ready to go is something that you have to take ownership of, right? You can't take that month to just hang and kind of go through the motions. Like if you have a place where you go and hit, you need to be in that place 4 or 5 times a week. If you can find a pitching facility that sets up live at bats, or someplace you could even just go stand in, huge advantage, right? So do a little bit of recon work here and try to find a place that you can get that stuff done. Taking ground balls and throwing, it's usually a little bit easier. You don't need a facility or anything like that, but like you have to stay on top of your game. You have to stay sharp. I think the big one that guys will miss out on is that's a great time to really start to get after it in the weight room again. A lot of guys are in the weight room a couple times a week. If they're not in the weight room a couple times a week right now, they need to be. But if you've got a 5-week window where you can get in the weight room for 3 or 4 weeks and start to gain some of that strength back that you probably inevitably lost during the season, huge opportunity for you to get yourself right. The one caveat to this is that if you're nursing some injuries, it's a great time to get healthy. If you got a sore arm or a sore hamstring, like you still need to be doing things, right? If you're a pitcher and you're a little bit banged up, but your legs feel good, you still need to be doing your leg days. You still need to be doing your running. Maybe take a little bit off of the throwing, but you got to be doing stuff that's productive, and doing it once or twice a week during that window, you're selling yourself short, right? Especially for those 26s, you've got a little bit of a sprint here coming this summer from June 1st to October. You need to make sure you're doing everything in your power so that you can put your best foot forward when these coaches are going to see you in June, July, August, September. Don't expect the summer to go great if you don't put in the effort during that window, right? And if you're a high school kid and your team's awesome and you get to play until the end of May, awesome. You're going to stay sharper than some other guys. But if you're in a situation where you do have this gap, you have to take advantage of it. It's that simple, right? We've talked about this all the time. The environment right now is ultra competitive. Whether you're going to play Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, JUCO, it doesn't matter. It's ultra competitive. You owe it to yourself, if playing college baseball is something that you truly desire, you owe it to yourself to make sure that you're doing these things during this window, because you have really one shot to get it right this summer. So don't look back on this window and go, well, maybe if I'd gone and hit a couple more times, or, if I'd gone in the weight room. Don't be that guy. Make sure you're checking those boxes. This is your public service announcement from Keith and Andy. Take advantage of that 5-week window. Make sure you're being productive and put yourself in a position where you can go and show out in the summer.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I'm glad you brought up the if you're a little banged up, it's a good time to recover and recoup too, because it is. But you still need to be doing something. The weight room, obviously, you get into, but I just think that, from an overall standpoint, this is the time of year for a lot of coaches to, understand that. I guess this is the best way I can phrase this. As a recruit, this is the best time. The coaches are focusing solely on the 90% of their focus is on their baseball team, and they'll get to some of the things that they need to get recruiting to when they need to, because in their mind they have 5, 6, 7 weeks to do all of this. It's not the most pressing thing in their world right this second, right? Whereas you feel as though like no one's answering you, you don't know what's going on, they're ghosting me. That's not the case. It's just from a priority standpoint, it's not the highest priority for them right then and there. It will be a very high priority in the very near future, and it'll pick back up with intensity. So don't lose faith. It'll be okay. It's just the priority is the playoff push, what you're doing, and then taking care of your team, making sure all those boxes are checked. And then when I have some time, I'll get back to all these guys, and it'll start to flow as it goes. So don't lose faith from that standpoint. I just want to be very clear that this is such a crunch time from a college baseball coach standpoint that you're putting a heavy emphasis on what you're doing from a team standpoint and taking care of what you need to do there, that the recruiting stuff and getting in emails and all that stuff, you're really only replying to your boss and your kids and things like that. The sitting down and hammering out a bunch of recruit emails at night isn't the highest of priorities, because in your mind it's I have another 5-6 weeks till anything spins up. I can get back to it and get back into that swing of things. So don't lose faith. It'll be okay. They'll get back to you. It's no big deal. And on the flip side, it doesn't preclude you from continuing to keep those coaches updated with how you're doing, how your team's doing, what you got going on, right? Even though they might not respond right away, let them know how you're doing, because they're going to get back to you eventually.
Well said. Still got to keep those emails going out. Still got to be following people on Twitter, posting on Twitter, doing all the stuff that we talk about, because these guys, they can't come and see you if they don't know where you're going to be. It's just that simple. And sometimes coaches just don't respond, but they track. Kids emailed me, oh, he's going to be on this team. I'll take a look at him, because, there are some guys who they're not going to actively engage with a kid until they get a chance to see him play, or, they don't really waste a ton of upfront time because they want to make sure that they're going to spend their time on a kid that they're going to recruit. So a lot of times that happens when they actually get to see you play. So yeah, never panic. It never does anybody good. And make sure you're getting after it. If you're one of those guys who's going to have a significant break, don't let this period go to waste. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Thank you for listening, everybody. Tune in next week. Thank you. Thank you for listening this week. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and smash that like button for us. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at EMD Baseball. If you want to find out what me and Keith do to help families and players navigate the recruiting process, go ahead and check us out on emdbaseball.com. Take a few minutes to check out our new online academy. I promise you'll get some good information out of that. Thanks again for listening. Check in with you next week.